for those of you who have logged into firewalls and appliances, the clish or klish command line terminal might ring a bell to you. Let me try to run one right now. I am using Docker here. So we are now brought into a terminal, and if I will type a question mark, so it will show me the available commands at the top level. So this is how it looks like when we log into firewalls and routers and appliances. We are provided with a minimal command line shell showing us what a limited set of commands that we can invoke. This is not a bash shell. We cannot type pwd or ls here. For example, if I will do that and press enter, nothing happens. I cannot even do clear screen, nothing happens also. So right now it's telling us that only this set of commands we can call. Well, the clish or klish is written in C, and it is a constraint shell used for firewalls and appliances. Okay, the purpose of this is to just provide the user a very small set of commands needed to change settings of the device, like configure, add user, change some parameters of the appliance, and so on. You cannot do erase file. You cannot do the usual powerful things that you can do in the bash shell. This is not a bash shell. This is a constraint limited shell terminal. So when I started to study this klish, I was a little bit confused, and I will share my personal opinion and experiences how to approach this klish piece of software, which is written in C. Okay, let me exit here. So first and foremost, the recent version of klish, and the one that I suggest that you will use, is the one that starts with a K. Okay, this one. The one that starts with a C, the version of that is I think 0.7.3, is buggy. Buggy, it does not accept underscore and so on. It has bugs. So please use the one that starts with a K, and the GitHub repo of that is this one. So this is the most active version of klish. For example, right now it is in 2017, actively updated. Okay, so klish, the way that klish works and the commands are provided for the user to call is through XML files. So the source code provide those XML files. For example, it is here, this one. These are the XML files, and the command that you saw a while ago, like ping, traceroute, or whatever the command that you want to be available in your appliance, you are going to specify that into the XML file. Of course, the underlying operating system has those executable that can be called by klish. However, because the klish is a constrained shell, the klish shell can only invoke the commands that you specified in the XML file. Now, here's my opinion here. Klish is a little bit complicated at first because it has inheritance, it has circular, almost circular form of navigation. You can go from one menu to sub-menu and so on, an arbitrarily deep menu system, and it might not be very obvious what happens, for example, in the auto-completion of commands. The way that I approach this, and I suggest also for the viewers here, is the trick is that I have to combine all of these XML into one XML because they share the same syntax and elements. I have to manually combine this. For example, let us view the XML one by one. All of those XMLs fall under the parent of clish module. For example, let me navigate to the next one. See, it is still under clish module, clish module, clish module, clish module. So what the clish shell does when running it is it combines all of these separate XML into one XML in memory, and that is what it is using to give you the set of commands and memorize all of those commands that it has authority to call, to invoke as you specify them. Okay, let me view it again, the file. Let us describe some of the XML elements that are involved in the clish command structure. Clish has an XSD schema specified here. If you want to know what is the absolute form of the XML, it has a p-type XML element. The purpose of the p-type is that it is not mandatory, but if you expect that a command accepts an integer, for example, an example of this command is ping -c, then an integer like 3, you want to ping 3 packets, and then it is beneficial that you specify that the parameter of ping is an integer, and that is why you can specify types like uint here and so on, like dates and so on. If the type does not match as expected in the command, you cannot complete the command in the shell. You can press enter, but the clish will not accept it. You will not be able to successfully input the command. If you will not put type, the command will succeed, but at the risk of, if the parameter is a mismatch, then your invoke command will be will error if it's not correct. So it is advisable to put types into the parameters of commands. Then a command is contained by the command XML element, and here we specify that the name of the command is clock. For example, clock by its own is not yet a complete command. If you type clock in the terminal and you press tab, then the auto completion of that will be this clock, either clock set or clock time zone. Okay, so for example, let me throw a shell here and run the clish. Okay, so sorry, this is not the same XML that I loaded, so the XML that we're looking here is not this one. That is why we cannot autocomplete the clock. Sorry about that, but that's the idea. And the action element specifies the actual shell that the operating system will run. Here it assumes the presence of a bash shell because this echo, maybe it will also run in DOS and so on. So, and the parameters of the command is constrained by the type in the specifying the param element. Here we specify that it is a time zone and an offset hour. This one is a year. This one is a day of the month, could be 1 to 31, and so on. So that is how you constrained the type in clish. Let's go to the next XML element. Okay, this one is particularly interesting because this time the commands, the list of commands are fall under the view parent XML element. So commands that fall under a view does not appear in the top level menu of the clish terminal. So you have to navigate into sub-menus of the terminal in order for these commands to become visible. It's just like a sub-menu in the UI, in the graphical interface, where there is a main menu and there's a sub-menu. So you have to go inside the debug view in order that you can enumerate these commands and so on. So we can begin to see now that clish allows you to have a hierarchic navigation of commands. Let's go to the next. Well, you can see here that the list of commands falls flat, immediately belonging under the clish module. So these commands, because they are flat, they do not belong to a view, then these commands like help, logout, top, debug, script, history will appear at the top level clish shell. Okay, let's go to the next. Here we have two views, root view and a name view, and for each of the view it has a list of commands under it. Okay, well, this one is a flat view. It does not have a named parent container of the command. The command immediately falls under the clish module, so it will be available in the top hierarchy, top view of the clish shell. Go to the next. Go to the next. And so on. And okay, these are the types. So as I have said, we can also specify types of the parameters passed to commands, and these are the regex, as the way to put it. For example, the VLAN ID is specified by this pattern here. Go to the next, and that's it. So as you can begin to see now, there are a lot of XML files, and although they are a little bit scattered, but the way that I was able to make sense of all of this is I had to combine all of this XML file into a single one unified XML file, meaning that all views of the same name are grouped together. The commands that fall under to the same view are also grouped together under the same view in one XML file, including the types also is now put into one XML file. So the types, the commands, the views, and all of this is now in one XML file, and I will explain to you why I have to do that. Okay, let me run the clish again. Now if I type a question mark, it will tell me what are the top level commands, and that's it. So for example, if I will type configure and I will press the tab key, so it will tell me, and it will auto-complete, that the next command available to me is only one option, and that is terminal, nothing more. I have to press enter, and now I am in a second level menu of the clish. This is no longer the top level menu. This is a sub menu under the terminal configure terminal sub command, and I can press the question mark again to tell me what are the list of commands here. We can see now that the list of commands is a little bit different from the first one, because this is already a sub menu, a second level of commands. We have add user, we have exit, hostname, interface, IP, password. If I type the IP, for example, and press the tab key, then it will tell me that the next possible option of this is either default gateway, route, or routing. So I have three options. For example, if I will choose route and press the tab key, nothing is complete, so I think that's the end of that. How about routing? Also, and the default gateway. So these are terminal nodes, so it expects us to specify a final argument of these commands for the command to complete. For example, the add user, I will say guest. Okay, now a user has been added, guest. Then you can say passwd password. Then, for example, if guest 01, then the password is pass123. Then it will say that it has failed because there is no such user as guest 01. However, if we change that to guest, then it will succeed because we just created the guest user and we set a password of 123. I can type exit here and I will be brought to the top level menu, and if I type a question mark, then I will be displayed the list of available commands. So this auto completion by pressing the tab key and going to sub menus is a little bit confusing if the XMLs are scattered in different places, because Clish uses a concept of inheritance wherein the auto-completion of a command could be specified in a different XML file somewhere. The XML files could be many, like 10 of them or 20, and if you do not have visibility of that XML file, you will be looking at one XML file and have no idea what the auto-completion will look like, because the other fragment of that command is found in a different XML file. Take note that when clish runs, it combines all of this XML into one XML in order to form a complete view of the command tree. Now, as you have seen, the XML are scattered in the file system, and that is why, in order to have a coherent view of what really happens inside, is I have to combine all of this XML into one file. So now let me go to another tab here. Now all that XML, so I combine all of these XML files into one called all.xml, and just open that file and see this has all of the separate XML files scattered in the file system. I combine them into one file. So for example, the views and all of the commands that fall under it are now written and fall under one view element. It could be possible that these subcommand falls to the same view name in a different XML file, and you can begin to see now that it will be difficult to make sense of commands if they are situated in different files. So I have to combine them one. Now, one of the principles in Clish is the concept of inheritance. So, but before I will discuss inheritance, when Clish runs, it reads the startup.xml, the startup node, and that is referred by this one. This is a special tag, and this will tell Clish which is the first menu item to begin with. And it shows here that the first top level menu should be from the view which is view 003. Now if we search the view 003, that's not it, and here it is. So Clish will display the list of commands under this view, and those commands are disable, reboot, show IP, show IP interface, show diag, and that is now explains this list of commands here. Okay, so now here's the caveat. The view uses a concept of inheritance, meaning reuse, and that is indicated by the presence of a namespace child element. It is telling us that even though we are in the view 003 and we are given a list of commands here under it, this one, in addition to these commands here, it is also telling us that we also have access to the list of commands in a different view, which is in view 004. So it as check what's in view 004 here. So we can see that there is a ping command here, and let us switch now to the other tab, and that is why we can see the ping command here. Even though it is not, the ping is not listed in the initial view, as we can see in the specified in the startup here. Okay, in the view 003 you cannot find ping here. Okay, there's no ping, right? There's no ping, but because it inherits through the use of namespace tag, so it means that we can also falling under view 003 are the commands in view 004. Let's go there, and it is listed as ping, and that is why we can see the ping command there. Okay, that's it, as well as the trace route command. Okay, it search for other cases of inheritance. Okay, now this is also a different, a modified form of inheritance. Okay, view 002. Okay, let me show here. Let me type configure terminal, enter. Okay, and if I enumerate the list of commands, then it shows me that. Now let me try to search configure terminal in the XML. Here. Okay, so let me describe track here. These two commands are forms one cooperates together. When you type configure, then when you press tab, then it will auto-complete into this one, configure terminal. If you omit this first one, then you will not be able to see the configure command, because klish needs to know the commands in stages. It first needs to know the presence of configure, and if you press tab, klish will know that the next command is terminal, and there's no other, because after configure there's only one next, and that is terminal. If there's another one aside from terminal, then klish will auto-complete to all of these possibilities. Okay, now so when we type configure terminal, the command, and we can also specify some actions here. I just printed an asterisk, but right now it's being commented out. We are being thrown to another view. See, view 002. This form of command, which has a view attribute, is a little bit tricky to notice, because this is the key. This is the technique, this is the key in which klish used to navigate from one state machine to another state machine or submenu. Other command element does not have this view attribute. For example, the show IP address here, you cannot see a view attribute here because this is completed through this action. However, the configure terminal, you just want to move to another submenu, and so we are thrown to a different view 002. And that is why when we type configure terminal and the prompt changes a little bit, and we are available to us is a different set of commands now, because this is now the commands specified in view 002. Let us try to verify that. Okay, here. And again, through the magic of XML namespace, which is an inheritance, it tells us that aside from the list of commands here, we also inherit those commands that are in view 003. And what are those commands in view 003? Here, disable, reboot, configure terminal, and show. Okay, but here is a trick that I will a little bit show you. You could not see those commands there. Like for example, yes, we inherit from view 003, but we could not see disable, we could not see reboot, we could not see configure. Here, it's not listed here because the inheritance is a little bit different than the other inheritance. Here, the inheritance specified that the prefix is do. So meaning that the commands in view 003 will be available to us if we type do as the prefix and press the tab key. So for example, I will type do here and press the tab key here. So now you can begin to see that those commands are available to us, right? Because it's specified in the do prefix. On the other hand, if the prefix is not specified, as in other cases of the inheritance, like this one, then the commands will appear listed in the menu item. And that is very tricky thing that, you know, you'll spend a lot of time figuring out what happened to your command tree if you will not notice this tiny little nasty things, right? So okay, what else? So I think that's it for now. I think you can begin to see now that the klish command line constraint shell is a C source code that is used to give the user the ability to modify an appliance like a firewall or a router to the terminal, because it provides a limited set of commands, and these commands are expressed in XML files, and we can go to arbitrary hierarchic tree of menus and submenus and submenus, and we can go back to next menu, and auto completion when we press tab key, and we can also use types and so on. So the trick here is the namespace, which is inheritance. It took me like 2 days to figure this out. Okay, because at first I was doing trial and error, thought that the XML was easy, but after feeling dizzy doing trial and error, I was forced to really understand what's happening here. Okay, first understand namespace. It is inheritance. It gives you to display available commands that are in a different view, and aside from that, observe carefully the prefix, because some namespace use a prefix, other namespace do not use a prefix. If it will not use a prefix, then the command listing will display there. If it uses a prefix, then you have to type do and press the tab key for the commands to be displayed there. It's like here, I type do, but this commands ping, reboot is not showing here. I have to type do and press the tab key to display these commands. That's the first tricky thing. And the second tricky thing is, for example, this command add user. This is a very simple construct because we just add a user and it is a complete atomic unit of command. However, some command has a view attribute, and the result of that is when you type that command, you are thrown to a different view. That's like what happens here. We are in the top menu, and if I type configure terminal, enter, and now we are in a different menu. Because if we go back here, this command, and this is a very special one, has a view attribute, and we are being thrown to another view as a side effect of that command. So this command's only purpose is to throw us into another view, and so that in that view we'll have a new here a new list of subcommands and so on. Okay, and let me try to and well, exit is always available in any level because it is in the top element here. It is in the top element. It is not constrained to a view. That is why it is always available. And that is why even though it is not listed in a subview, but since it is in the top level, so you can have that. Okay, type exit. Okay, so we go back to the top menu. Well, actually there's another exit here which is going to go back to the nesting. This one is going to exit the clish, but this one is going to move to the nesting. Okay, exit from the configure mode. Yep, when we exit from the view 02, we are being thrown to view 003. This is also another way of exiting, by throwing to another view. And yep, and that's it for now, guys. I hope that this helps some of you understanding clish.